Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiaojun in Beijing, and today we're starting a brand new series called Chinese Civilization. The series sets out to illustrate the evolution of Chinese civilization through an investigation of archaeological discoveries, historical sites, and cultural relics. And in the course of this, it will reflect the enduring desire for self-improvement and social commitment that are a feature of the Chinese nation. In today's program, we'll be going back to the dawn of Chinese civilization. 5,000 years ago, the Yellow River gave birth to Yan Di, the Yan Emperor, and Huang Di, the Yellow Emperor. It was then that people here first started to call themselves Chinese.
Beginning from 5,000 years ago, when the Yellow River gave birth to Yan Di, or the Yan Emperor, and Huang Di, the Yellow Emperor, the two greatest heroes in Chinese antiquity, people in this land started to call themselves Chinese. With the seeds of civilization planted 10,000 years ago sprouting, growing, and blooming in the Central Plain, the development of Chinese culture was gathering momentum. A great nation was about to be born. In the year 91 BC, the great Han Dynasty historian Sima Qian finally finished his great book, Records of the Historian, a work that begins with the legendary figure Huang Di. But are there any tangible facts to prove that this hero and his people even existed in ancient antiquity?
司马迁呢，写《史记》，它是个通史，是吧？是讲中国整个的历史。而在这整个历史呢，他选用武帝本纪，用炎黄，特别是黄帝的这个时代作为武帝本纪的开始，这个不是一个偶然的事情。他是不但是根据古书文献，他还亲身的到这个全国各地做了调查，了解各地方的历史传说。那么这样他选择这一点。那么从武帝本纪本身，我们就可以看到呢，他所描述的黄帝这个时期，实际上是中国文明的一个开始形成的一个时期。
Yangshao is a deserted village in Mianzhi County, Henan Province, located on the southern bank of the Yellow River, and towards it zigzags an equally deserted road. Before long, these dilapidated walls, the remains of dwellings that date back to ancient antiquity, will disappear, leaving only the village's name to be remembered. The first significant clue about the identity of this place was discovered by Swedish geologist Johan Andersson. In 1921, Andersson made a second visit to the area around Yangshao in the hope of finding fossils of vertebrate animals, but instead, he noticed certain unusual soil strata from which he and his scientist associates unearthed a pile of stone tools and pieces of pottery. Andersson wondered whether these dark objects, some of which bore coloured patterns, dated back to prehistoric times. Later, other discoveries of a similar nature unearthed from the southern bank of the Yellow River confirmed that they were, and Andersson named the prehistoric culture he had discovered Yangshao culture. After comparing the finds from Yangshao culture with ancient color pottery from Central Asia and Europe, Addison noticed that there were many similarities. Perhaps, he considered, they all shared the same birthplace. But if so, where was that birthplace? Perhaps this culture had been born in the West and had later spread to China. Did Chinese culture originate in China's west and later move eastward? To answer this question, a number of Chinese scholars turned their eyes to Shandong province in China's central plain, hoping to locate the roots of Chinese civilization, a civilization native to Shandong, neither foreign nor from China's west. In 1928, 27-year-old Wu Jinding climbed a tall ancient wall in the town of Longshan, called by his friend a town of geese and ducks. Perhaps Wu Jinding wondered this area had needed a town for geese and ducks in ancient times and was somehow related to ancient history. In the grey earthen stratum in a cliff in Longshan, he found some pieces of shiny glazed pottery, all a very dark black. Not long after, two teams headed by Li Ji and Liang Suyong carried out separate archaeological investigations, and what they found revealed a mysterious culture never before known. This previously unknown culture was characterized by shiny black pottery objects that were entirely different from the type found in Yangshao, and so they named this culture Longshan culture. The discovery shocked the established belief that Chinese culture had come from China's western regions, and suggested instead that it had been based on the Central Plain. In 1934, Li Ji and Liang Suyong's findings were published in a book titled Chengzi Ya, the first archaeological field report ever published in China. The defining characteristic of Longshan culture is its finely crafted black pottery, and so for a long time, all prehistoric cultural relics found wherever black pottery was present were regarded as belonging to Longshan culture. The pottery craftsmanship required to make these black pottery items was indeed impressive. For instance, among the pottery objects found was this amazing black pottery cup. It weighs just 50 grams, is 1 millimeter thick at the thickest point, and astonishingly is just 0.3 millimeters thick at the thinnest, thinner than an eggshell. This type of pottery is thus called eggshell pottery, and even making it today is unimaginable to contemporary pottery craftsmen. Archaeologists have determined that Longshan culture dates back to 4,000 to 4,600 years ago. But where did this culture come from, and what was the parent culture?
The significance of the discovery of Longshan culture was that it put paid to the established belief that Chinese civilization had come from the West. Instead, it seemed to have originated on the Central Plain. In 1959, a site was discovered with more than 100 ancient tombs dating back 6,000 years. This previously unknown ancient culture was given the name Da Wenkou.
When construction began on a two-way line for the Beijing-Pukou Railway in 1959, more than 100 ancient tombs were brought to light. Their occupants had remained buried undisturbed for 6,000 years. The discovery revealed that some 6,500 years ago, people living around Mount Tai had created a brilliant Oriental culture. This newly discovered ancient culture was given the name Da Wenkou culture. Everything found in the tombs suggested that 5,700 years ago, the established family structure was built around monogamy, as after death, the husband and wife had been buried together in the same tomb. It was also clear that equality inside the clan had been abandoned. Inside the tombs of the rich were large numbers of beautifully crafted pottery objects, while inside those of the poor were just a few coarsely made objects. Archaeologists were puzzled by a particular kind of mysterious burial object found in these tombs that looked rather like a modern-day gun shell. Some scholars felt it likely that the patterns carved on these were China's earliest written language. Others concluded that one of the patterns meant sunrise from the east. It was clear that the eastern part of China around Mount Tai had seen the flourishing of a culture that was quite different from that in Yangshao. That being the case then, where had Yangshao culture come from? Legend has it that Huang Di was the leader of a great tribe called the Cathay, while Yan Di, who was Huang Di's cousin, was the leader of another great tribe. Both came from the Weishui River area in China's west. The source of Yangshao culture had been found at the foot of Mount Hua, a mountain in China's west, and at Mount Tai in China's east. Somehow, the two sites seemed to form a mysterious balance. Both were the cradle of Chinese civilization. About 6,700 years ago, a branch of Yangshao people came to the foot of Mount Hua and there made their home. Today, this place is called Banpo. In 1954, the mysterious veil masking the face of the Banpo people was finally lifted. In ancient antiquity, Banpo had been a paradise on earth, a veritable Garden of Eden. And so surrounding it was a trench about 8 meters wide and 6 meters deep to make it inaccessible to outsiders. These are the remains of a typical living area in ancient times of a type that was very common along the Weihe River. The people living within were cut off from the outside world. Most such communities consisted of around 100 dwelling rooms housing a total of around 500 people, all of whom lived by growing what we call today millet. About 8,000 years ago, people living on the eastern Taihang Mountains had developed the species of millet from wild grass.
在50年代，我们就在一些新石器时代遗址发现了树，发现了鼠。但是最震撼的一次是在河北武安慈山这个遗址，发现了几百个教穴，这个教穴呢都是那个长粮食的，中国就成了蜀和粟最早栽培的国家和最早发展为汉地农业体系的一个国家。一直到汉代以前，中国的黄河流域主要的农作物就是黍和粟。那么中国的北方的这个文明就是在这种农业的基础上产生的。
All the tools used in farming were made of stone or animal bones. Fields were ploughed using stone spades, crops were harvested with stone knives, and grain was shelled using stone hullers. But as well as engaging in farming, Banpo people fished and hunted, and they depicted these activities in decorative paintings on pottery utensils. Red paint can still be seen inside this inkstone that belonged to some unknown artist. This pottery pot with a small mouth and pointed base required considerable ingenuity to make. When lowered into water, it automatically falls to receive water, and when full, rights itself. Ban Po people knew how to make creative use of the principles of gravity and balance. Yangshao culture, as found in the Weihe River areas in the western part of present-day Henan province and the southern part of Shanxi province, spans a very long period of history, from 7,000 to 5,000 years ago. And as it happens, the vast area the culture encompasses matches descriptions in sagas about the legendary Huang Di.
这皇帝的时候，他传说里面他做了这么些事儿，我们看看这个阶段的考古的遗存，它有没有这些事情？确实有了。从这个角度来讲，这个皇帝的传说呢也不虚，也不虚。而且后面既然我们中国人都认为我们是皇帝的子孙，或者我们是炎黄的子孙、炎黄的一族，那么它就成了一个文化现象。这个文化现象呢，对于团结我们民族，它起了很好的凝聚作用。
Yangshao culture, as found in the Weihe River area, spans a very long historical period, from 7,000 to 5,000 years ago. In fact, legend has it that Huang Di and Yan Di both originated from the Weihe River area at around the time of Yangshao culture.
A branch of Yangshao culture spread north along the Fenhe River east to the Yellow River, where it met another developed culture, now named Hongshan culture, in the northern part of present-day Hebei province. After conducting field research in a place called Hongshan in Chufeng City in Inner Mongolia in 1908, Chinese and foreign archaeologists decided to name what they had found Hongshan culture. In 1981, a stone tomb was found in Liaoning province in northeast China at a place called Niaoheliang in Jianping County. Confirmed as being 5,500 years old, the site consisted of a large pile of rocks on top of a tomb, a method of burial now known to be typical of Hongshan culture. When the huge stone slab and the dust of history were removed, a number of surprising finds were revealed. There were no pottery objects inside this tomb, but there was plenty of jade. The owner of the tomb had clearly been a great lover of jade. A jade dragon had been placed on his chest, a telling reference perhaps to why contemporary Chinese call themselves even today the descendants of the dragon. This is a world of stone built on top of a mountain by Hongshan people who believed that by doing this, the dead could get closer to heaven. However, these huge rocks were not from close by. They had been brought here from a site 15 kilometers away, and this had required considerable manpower. Who would have been able to mobilize so many people for such a huge project? Stone steps about a meter high kept the owner company for thousands of years. From the size of the steps, it seems clear that the owner must have been a royal. The triple ring stone altar is particularly interesting. The diameter of the outer ring is exactly twice that of the inner ring. This is probably the result of observations of the orbit of the Sun during points in summer and winter using the traditional Chinese calendar. Is this evidence of the discovery of astronomical principles 5,000 years ago. After restoration, pieces of broken pottery found beside each ring formed a hollow barrel-like object, apparently not for any practical use. It would appear this object was used for some kind of religious purpose, perhaps communicating with heaven. From what they found, the archaeologists concluded that this site, 150 meters long east to west and 80 meters wide south to north, was used for worship ceremonies. The triple ring stone altar was for worshipping heaven, the stone tomb for worshipping the earth. The idea that the sky is round and the earth is square was an ancient belief in China that lasted all the way up to the 19th century. In Hongshan culture, the coffins for the dead were made of stone. But where did people stay when they were alive? In woods close to the site, pieces of clay sculptures and the jawbones of a bear were found. The proportions of the broken pieces caused the archaeologists to be astounded at the size of the original sculptures, as the highest had been 5 meters tall. The sculptures had slender fingers, round shoulders and well-developed breasts, all suggesting they'd been part of a group sculpture depicting a number of women. Further studies disclosed that this place had been a temple housing a goddess. What became clear was that 5,000 years ago in the Liaohe River area of China's north, there had existed a powerful kingdom, the ruler and people of which had built a huge worship site comprising the temple of the goddesses, an altar, and 13 stone tombs scattered over an area of around 50 square kilometers.
近年来呢，我们更多认识到，中国自古以来是一个多地区多民族的国家，是吧？它在不同的地区、不同的民族，都对于呢我们共同的这个传统文化的形成起着很重要的贡献和作用。不仅是在黄河流域，我们看还有长江流域，还有甚至于更南的地区。是吧？往北的话呢，你比方说这个辽河流域也很重要，甚至于更北的地区。那么就是说呢，这种不同的性质的这个古代文化，它互相影响、互相融合最后汇集在一起，再形成了这个灿烂辉煌的中华文明。
While the Yellow River area and the other areas in China's north were developing their own cultures, the Yangtze River area in China's south quickened its steps towards the era of civilization.
Two distinct regions claim to have given birth to Chinese agriculture. It was along the Yellow River that the first corn and millet were grown, and the Yangtze was the birthplace of rice cultivation. Well, we've seen something of the cultures that emerged along the Yellow River in the north. As for the Yangtze, we'll examine this progress towards civilization in our next episode. And please stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us on today's New Frontiers. I'm Ji Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.